Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Sarat Bihari Ji ki jai, Shri Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Shri Gadai Gauranga ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Praman. So, good afternoon to all of you. Welcome. Now, is there something to put this a little bit higher?
Yeah.
Some stuff that may measure this one box or something. If it's possible, if not. Sorry. Like this, something.
Some songs.
Maybe the let's see that one.
Addiction as a box.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, thank you. So today we are gathering after our 5-day series of studies regarding the prayers of Thakur Bhaktivinoda and in his now the Bhavataranga, approaching Sri Narahari, Bhagavan Srihadev, the pursuit of Raga-bhakti. So after closing that session yesterday, quote unquote, closing the unlimited, it's not possible, but somehow. So the idea is today to share some space for questions and answers, whatever you may like us to ask about. Remember, Morangi Priya has one topic, so I have to begin with her. Are you able to repeat that question that you sent to us about that time? You remember?
Not really.
No?
Oh, it's really good. I'll wait a look it up. Oh, well, it's not on the topic of, it might be better to stay on. There might be more questions about the topic.
Whatever, not necessarily, whatever. Meanwhile, if anyone else has any other question, then we can. Mahamantra has another question.
I do, if it's okay.
I think it's okay.
It is okay. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much for talking to us all these days. It's been amazing. Yesterday you were saying how prayer is difficult and it's a hard thing. And honestly, I always thought prayer was the easiest thing until, like, the more I heard from different devotees, it seemed to be more and more complicated. Because I guess we're not supposed to ask for anything, but then I thought, well, who else are you going to talk to? And who else are you going to reveal everything to, maybe in the form of prayer, but Supreme Lord Krishna. So what is the appropriate way to pray?
That's maybe one of the most difficult questions to answer. In one sense, there is no answer at one point to that. But as we say yesterday, but to become that very thing yourself, as we were yesterday making this play of words about this one who speaks is a speaker, one who plays is a player, and one who prays is a... English grammar allows for that. In Spanish, I couldn't make that same connection, but here I'm speaking in English, so I have to take full advantage of the advantages of your language. So yeah, you ultimately, in that sense, I mean, prayer is difficult. I don't mean to like overcomplicate things. You know, say, Maharaj, but for me, it's easy. No, it cannot be easy. It has to be difficult. I don't mean that, but also there's always this healthy like questioning that whatever I think it's easy, I mean, there's place for that on certain level, but on another level, I realized it was not as easy as I thought. And Vishwanath Thakur mentions this, gives this intimation when he speaks in the context of Utsahamayi, and all the remaining stages of Anishtita Bhajana Kriya. And he says, in the beginning of your practice, your path will be Anishtita, which means, you follow my mudra, so unstable, ups and downs. But it will begin like with a ride on the top like experience called Utsaamayi. Utsaamayi means like, I mean, possessed by enthusiasm means. Utsaha means enthusiasm and Mai means like full of. But generally what he mentions is that full of enthusiasm like stage comes from the idea that, okay, I'm just beginning and it seems I'm mastering the whole thing in a few days. So it was not that difficult. All these mystics and weird people and Swami saying it's difficult to pray. I mean, I chant 2-3 times and I saw some lights and experienced some stuff. And I don't mean to deny those experiences, but the point is we have to sustain whatever came to us. We are Vaishnava, so Vaishnava has to do with some way with Vishnu. In Vishnu is the sustainer. Vishnu is the deity of sustainability. So as Vaishnavas, our duty is to maintain whatever has been created or has come to us. And we know you cannot maintain anything without developing that thing. It's not that I can maintain something on the exact same spot as it began, like maintaining, I don't know, a relationship. How you maintain a relationship? I mean, there's no other way apart from making the relationship more and more upgraded. So Vaishnavism is a relationship, basically. Spiritual project is all about relationships. It's sambandha from tip to toe. This idea of sambandha, everything is related, interrelated, interconnected. It's all about relationships. That's the conceptual orientation that will guide our practice. The idea that there's a relationship among everything. We call that sambandha. Sambandha means like full link, if you will. Sambandha. Everything is fully linked with another thing. So, and for us, that's the knowledge that will naturally translate into action. I mean, whatever we consider avideya or the practice is just the natural outcome of knowing how everything is interrelated. The more you know how much everything is interrelated, that will take you to a certain particular movement in life. That's what we call practice. It's not so much, okay, now I will sit and do my practice. As we were speaking today, like someone, I won't say the names, but someone said, okay, someone asked me, what's my service? Now, one question, I don't know what to reply. What's my service? I'm not pujari, I'm not book distributor, I'm not sannyasi, I'm not, but at the same time, hopefully everything I'm trying to do is service. Because if I say, well, my service is to do this, the next question is, so what are you doing the rest of the day? When you stop doing that, when you stop doing your service. So hopefully my service is to go to the bathroom, to have shower, to raise my children, to go shopping, all that in the context of Krishna Anushilana, favorable Anukulyana Krishna Anushilana Bhakti. So in that sense, I say to pray is difficult because again, to pray means to become prayer, and to become prayer is not only that's not only has to do with like, I don't know, like become fully imbibed of what you are doing in that moment, official day, moment of the day that you are maybe sitting and prayer or whatever, but to act out your beliefs, your belief system, if you will. Your whole belief system has to be act out on a daily basis. And as Thomas Merton says, that I like it a lot, especially in the most ordinary moments of your daily life. And as much as you do that, I believe that you believe in God, I will say. Because you can say, I believe in God, I believe in Krishna, I believe in this, but as much as you act out those words, and you are not only paying lip service to them, okay, I believe that you believe, basically. Because if not, I mean, we can just parrot the dogma only, become parrots in that sense, and we are to become parrots in the other sense. We were speaking the other day, the Mahamantra was chasing the birds away from the garden in a very loving way, because the birds were really like putting their beak in the berries. But her concern was mainly because they are putting the beak in the berries, and the berries, I cannot offer them to the deity because you already tasted them. That was the main concern, not so much an anti-bird campaign or something. But also the conclusion was, she told me, but when the birds are putting their beak in the berries, they're made it sweeter. So the next idea was, so with even more reason, you have to offer those berries to Bhagavan. Let the bees, the birds make their service to sweeten the fruits so they can, basically. And the point is similar to the parrot. The parrot, they say that bites a fruit and makes it sweeter. So we are to parrot something in that sense, not just to parrot in the dry sense, but to add extra sweet to whatever is sweet already is there. So I remember seeing one, I think I shared that with you some time ago, one interview with one very quite well-known public intellectual nowadays, Jordan Peterson. He's a clinical psychologist, and once someone asked him, like, he generally doesn't say he believes in God, but he says that he acts as if God exists. Because for him it was too much to say I believe in God. Because he was making this point. If I really believe in God, if I really start to grasp which are the implications of believing in God, I cannot start to imagine what does it mean fully and how I should be behaving accordingly to that. So I don't want to be too like rushing into that idea and say I believe in God. So I act as if He exists, like trying to get closer to that, but I don't feel I'm ready to say I believe in God, because who knows which are the implications of doing that in every single sense of the term. This idea has to do with prayer, because again, prayer is again, you have to become prayer. So that means you have to become a walking unity of that type of reality. So it means it's not that you are praying only when you are praying, but you are praying every moment, whatever you're doing. So in that sense, I say it's not easy, because prayer has such a wide scope that it's not limited to the official moment you enter into the chamber, if you will, your Bhajan Kutri. Okay, now I'll go to pray. Please do not interrupt me. Okay, we have to begin somewhere. But eventually the idea is that, as our Guru Maharaj would say, our sitting becomes our walking. Now, I will sit to pray, but then I have to wake up and walk. So you have to walk your talk and you have to walk your sitting, if you will. During sitting, you may talk also. Maybe nobody's there, but someone is there taking notes. Okay, well, let's see how much you walk your sitting then after this. At every moment that's happening. So I was speaking with Bhakti Ras yesterday. She was like telling me, oh Maharaj, thank you for the class and this and that. I say, well, that's so hard to give this class, because right after finishing the class, or even during the class, immediately I feel all this like current of tests coming to see how much you walk your talk, boy. You say all these fancy things. Let's see how much you believe in them, how much you don't want to be a hypocrite in the name of the highest idea. That would be the worst possible thing. I mean, to take the highest, most noble idea and just make a fancy show or presentation of that. I mean, at one point it can be tempting. That's one of the tests in the sadhaka's journey, and that can be part of her messiness as well. So that was my point with the difficulty. I mean, already it's difficult to pray when sitting. I'm not saying it's just I sit and no, you pray, you press prayer mode, and you are there. But again, the point is how much we like extend the realm of prayer to every single act, and we get to that point that Advai Gyan Tattva, there is non-duality, in the sense that everything becomes that one thing. We stop functioning in dual terms. I mean, that's basic Vedantic knowledge, but we have to walk the Vedanta. We have to walk the talk, non-duality, understanding that there is no spiritual life and material life. At some point, the difference has to disappear. There is not my service and something else. If I still retain that notion, I mean, still there is some way to go. So there is no prayer moment and non-prayer moment. I mean, there may be now, but that shows the more we have this duality, it shows which is the way we have to go yet. And it's okay. That's a way of understanding where I am, how long do I have to walk. So mostly that was the notion. Try to to embrace the full implications of our tradition, of every theistic or every tradition, mystical tradition. To become mystics is to become, again, that's a full business, 24/7, as they say here, 24/7 engagement. It's not a weekend business, hobby business, vacation, mystic. Sorry, not business, no, like mystic. So it's a passionate vocation, if you will. So some ideas, I don't know, we can continue, but I saw some hands rising over here. No.
I just wanted to clarify. So basically, you're just saying that, like, by engaging in service, that's your form of prayer, like, whole time.
Yeah, I mean, by engaging in service, that's your full prayer, you said?
Engaging in service full time is prayer. It's like the form of prayer.
Yeah, I mean, the point is, these are all of these are concepts. So it's important to really get like beyond the concept, beyond the word, because we say service, and maybe each of you are like 15 people here, so it's a service, and we may have 15 simultaneous different ideas of what service. And I do not mean there's only one possible idea of service, but there can be many wrong ideas about services, or some ideas that are correct for some stage, but not for our stage. We need to upgrade them, as we said the other day, not to remain sahaja, and upgrade our glossary of term. We know all this means Krishna means this, Harinam means this, service means this. During some years, that glossary is okay, but after some years, you have to recalibrate every single meaning of every single term, because it will come to mean something else. Like, again, it's a relationship. We are relating with all the things. So I'm sure that if I ask, I don't know, Dana, what does it mean Gauravani for you now? Her reply won't be the same like 8 years back. Because, I mean, I hope, because if the same after 8 years, I wonder how you remain together. Every single year is given the same answer, like, oh, this is it's like, oh, it's not possible. So when we speak about service and prayer, all this again is I'm developing a relationship with service, prayer, blah 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 blah. So it has to upgrade itself. So as we say, service is not doing stuff, as we mentioned the other day. No, I will do service. It's more how I approach whatever I do, basically. I can be inside the altar as close as possible to the deity, who knows with which weird idea in mind, and I can be passing a stool in the context of seva. That's possible. You have to be high Vaishnava to reach that stage, maybe, but that's, I mean, the potential of bhakti is just to embrace everything we do, especially the ordinary. So I will say that in connection to service and prayer, I would say that prayer is something that will be like really instrumental for better grasping what service, basically. I would prefer to put that in that particular order. Like, we will pray to try to approach service in the proper way, to understand what service, because if we do not approach bhakti, seva, in a prayerful mood, it means we do not understand what's that. Because seva is like a very high privilege. It's not that just I will do service. Like it's my right. It's not your right. Bhakti is not your right. Bhakti is a gift. So bhakti allows you to engage in seva. So it's not something that you force. I will do that. No, it's something that I'm allowed to engage in such a noble sphere. So it's so delicate, so high. I must approach that in a prayerful mood again. It's not just like a joke. That's what Brahma understood. Gyam prayasudapasya namanta eva. You say, he had four heads. So Guru Maharaj used like to say. He thinks in the four directions. The biggest scientist in the whole universe. No? Four heads, like at this point, the Brahma Mohalila, the four heads were like spinning. Krishna showed something else. And his conclusion was Namanda Eva. The only way to approach this reality is by doing this, I will get much more knowledge than by trying to make smoke coming out of my foreheads altogether. I try my best to understand, but this will be much more effective. Prayerful mood, again, approaching the infinite by fully acknowledge my finiteness, whatever words there. So the more you acknowledge your finiteness, probably the more the infinite will feel inclined towards revealing itself to you. So I will say it's important to conceive, whatever we do in service, because if not, we get accustomed to the extraordinary, and that's a big problem and danger. Like we are surrounded by extraordinary items, prasad, harinam, sadhu sangat, thakurji, vaishnavas. I mean, every item of bhakti is not from this world. But you get accustomed to that at one point. Oh yeah, kirtan, devoted, yeah. Diti, yeah, give me the incense. So you take the extraordinary, and because of not having a proper prayerful mode, that becomes like, okay, deity, TV, Harinam, whatever, music, pop music, prasadam, Starbucks, start to merge with each other at one point. Like, okay, what's going on here? We have to have a clear demarcation line between the two, because one is under the influence of one particular Shakti and the other under the shelter of another Shakti. Maya Shakti, Swarup Shakti. So yeah, it's like, and that's a daily tapasya, I would say, daily discipline. We have to, like penance, we have to engage in, like to take the time to really, again, recalibrate. How does it say in English, the GPS? Recalculating? Recalculating means you are wrong in the wrong place. Recalculating. So we need to embrace that function, because in many cases we are going, recalculating what I'm supposed to do, what's the reality of this, what's the ontology of everything that is around me, recalculating who I am, what's that, reestablishing all this sambandha, this basic foundational knowledge we received from day one, over and over and over again. Not as a boring thing, but something really interesting. So, and at one point that will be the result. Even the most simple thing that you consider a daily affair will be approached with such reverence and such love and such. As we were speaking sometime back with Rigupad about Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, and there are some nice videos that he's just filmed, maybe chanting japa or doing anything, opening a book. Everything he did was an event, a devotional event, no? Because it was done with such prayerful mode. I mean, he was taking his jap mala from the malika and putting it, and this all take like minutes and minutes before starting officially to chant. We generally put the hand on and play. Something like that, no? Like, at least just do like this. It's not there, it's there, here. But he was such, like really, we really felt, I mean, he's there, he's in the real thing. Or he had like a big box with different like remnants from different places and deities and dust from this tier. So there's like one video that is like an hour. And he's so alone there and someone like left the camera there or something. And he's in his bed and taking one and opening, looking with some prayer, looking, closing, opening, like 1 hour. And you are like, you are totally mesmerized by just seeing a pure soul approaching every atom of reality with the proper conception. That's what's going on there. Nothing else and nothing less than that. So I was feeling, well, okay, I'm supposed to reach that point someday. That's the committed experience you had. It's not that, oh, how nice to Puri Maharaj, but it's for him. He's Puri Maharaj. Yeah, he's Puri Maharaj, and he's trying to tell you, you are to come here with me, basically. You are to join me. As we say, Guru is our potential appearing in front of us. It's not just some nice guy that is like inspiring you. If you get inspired by your Guru, but you don't feel committed to surrender to that inspiration and reach that same place, that so-called inspiration is actually your exploitation, and you're just enjoying your senses through your master. Oh, he's so inspiring, he speaks so nicely, he sings so nicely, he blah, blah. But in your heart, you don't feel the call. I am to join him there. If you don't embrace that, that's hypocrisy. And that's enjoyment. Your Guru is just like an entertainment and buffoon or something. Oh, he comes, he sings, he speaks nicely. We're like, we are so happy now. But the call is different than that. He's calling you, here I am, come to me. The Guru is a whole portal coming to your life every single moment, available every single moment. So, yeah, that's the result of approaching service in a prayerful mode. And the point is that if you're in a prayerful mode, again, everything is service. Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati will say that. The arti plate that contains incense and ghee lamp, water, and so on, it symbolizes also earth, water, fire, air, ether, all these 5 elements. And all this creation is made of 5 elements. So that plate represents the whole creation. So what you do with the whole creation represented in the plate, you offer to Bhagavan. So he will say, this plate represents that everything around you is potential paraphernalia to be engaged in the service of Bhagavan. Therefore, to be approached reverentially, because everything has the potential to be offered in bhakti. You follow my point? Sometimes someone is cooking and say, okay, I want to see or to smell because that will be offered to the deity. Okay, but it's not only with that thing that will be offered to the deity. Everything has the potential to be offered to the deity. And this is the most difficult thing. You have the potential to be offered to the deity. So in the same way that you take so much care not to spoil the offering, you are cooking or whatever, you yourself are the offering not to be spoiled. So how much we take care of that on our daily basis, that's sadhana. That's practice. How much I'm sacralizing? No, like sacred.
Yeah, sanctifying.
Yeah, how much I am willing to sanctify each one of my daily steps in the direction of becoming a suitable offering to be relished by Bhagavan for eternity. That's the goal. I mean, we are to be swallowed and chewed and ruminated on by Bhagavan for eternity. So we have to become fit for that because he doesn't eat boga. He only tastes high quality prasad, if you will. So we are the offering over and over again. That's the conclusion in bhakti. I'm not offering. All the other things I'm offering are just like a preface for me to understand I am the one to jump into the fire. No? the grain of rice entering into the swaha, and that's, I have to feel out. I see my face in that grain of rice. I'm reflected there. So it's nice to throw rice to the fire, but it may be not nice to enter us into the fire. But that's the idea. Those are the first two syllables at the very beginning of creation. Tapas, tapas, which means you are to enter into the fire. Tapas means fire. Again, don't be scared. No, this is glorious and this is beautiful. Because our higher prospect will be there. The more we enter into that fire, the more our bright, brilliant self will come onto the surface. Something like that. What else? Yeah.
Yeah, as follows. It could be tempting. You're all listening to this series of lectures. It could be tempting to think, oh, Maharaj is giving me encouragement to be a better devotee, have more integrity. Because a lot of you talking about like not to have this victim consciousness, and so much just about the nuts and bolts of integrity, you know, to mature and not hide. Like, what was that you said about impersonalism? Is also just like hiding in the crowd. Oh, I joined this, but this is still impersonalism. I'm not preaching my environment. I'm an impersonalist because I'm avoiding the responsibility to individuate. So all this, and what you're saying now about Jordan Peterson and you know, walking, also what Guru Maharaj said, I love that. Walk your sitting. Just I hear like this is integrity, you know, and integrity like a cup with no cracks. And it could be tempting to think, oh, Maharaj is here, he's giving so much time to help me, like, yeah, reflect on how I could be a better person, a better devotee, more integrity, you know, more coherent. But the context of everything you've been talking about, you drop from the beginning this word and it keeps coming. And I've heard what I've seen of your Guru Maharaj also, it's quite explicitly, the point is about Raga-bhakti. So we're talking about integrity in the context of Raga. And I want to ask about, like, I think that what I'm understanding, this reflecting right now, is there's a need for the cup to be able to do this Raga-bhakti and not leak on my shoes. This like gift from the parampara, you could aspire for this, you could appreciate this. Nitya seva. But so one thing, there's a container of the integrity, but then what is done inside there? My question is about methodology, about Raga-bhakti, and particularly I was thinking about, and it's I don't want to make too unnecessarily complicated, but like Siddha Krishnadas Baba, he's sitting at Manasi Ganga, and he puts together this Gutika. We were talking also with Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu the other day. This Gutika about how to meditate on Gauranga's pastimes. There's a bridge to Braj. And then also, we've been speaking a little some mantras and things of Janchana Goswami, Padati, and there are these manuals that are about methodology. Which it's Archan Smaran. So it's like Archan, regulated thinking. Because I could have integrity and I want this thing, but what about, is there like a method that I need to, my question is, how important is applying a method? You know, what is to be done technically to make this Raga-bhakti happening? And especially, is it different? Is it this Archan Smaran, this kind of, okay, every day you think, obviously you're not going to spend the whole day thinking all day long inside, you have things to do outside also. But, you know, I'm sitting with my Gurudev and my Param Gurudev, my Parapara Gurudev, and we're going to see the awakening of Gauranga, and there's a whole method, and it's like every day, just like you do the regulated external practices, regulated thinking to grow these feelings inside of the container of the integrity that you're giving a lot of attention to. And I wonder, is this method stuff is this for Ajat Ruchi Sadak, like Nishta, beginning of Raga, okay, we're sober enough, mature enough, I want what Gurudev is talking about, I want to cultivate this aspiration, properly honor what he's given his life to make possible. He didn't come here and you didn't come here either just to make me a better person, more sattvic, more integrity, like I could have Jordan Peterson for that. You came here to feed my Raga-bhakti. You know? So how do I not treat you like a buffoon or Gurudev like a buffoon? You're like, yeah, thank you, that's nice. I put some coins in my sattvagun enjoyment of material life and actually take advantage of growing my eternal individuation. what is this method is for? Is it for the person who doesn't have ruchi yet, and they should like saturate the mind, or is it for the person who does have ruchi? Where we are in general, and you can't really generalize too much, but what about how important is a regulated method? If it's spontaneous devotion, you just sit down and you think about what Gurudev said and you let what comes naturally, or should it be every day I try to think, okay, now is the time I'm going to practice every day. You know, this is the time of day that Gurudev is there in his sadhaka swarup, nitya swarup, and Navadvip, and I'm there. Am I going to do that every day to grow it, or is that more advanced? Is that not applicable method? I just feel like I don't want to miss that you're here about Raga-bhakti.
You don't want.
I don't want to miss the fact that you're here about Raga-bhakti. And there's all this help about integrity, so that's if anything possible inside of there. But then what to do inside of there?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the question. And thank you for the reminder, because I totally agree that we can speak about integrity and fearlessness and all these elements that can be also applied to someone who is even an atheist. Sattvic. I mean, you can be sattvic and be non-believer, basically. So the point is, of course, in brief words, our goal is not sattva. But if we sometimes speak about sattva, is in certain contexts, we need to, as Guru Maharaj will say, to have a proper horizontal development, so we can embrace the vertical development. So we need some basis on our material body, mind, psychology, emotions, but understand that's not the goal. Because sometimes that's the tricky thing. You may rush too quickly on the vertical development, but the whole building has not foundation, so it won't last. Or you can spend too much time in digging the hole for the foundation, and you dig so much that you are like 50, 100 feet down, and when you want, oh my God, how do I get out of this hole now? And I didn't even put the first brick in the name of digging a foundation. So also that's the tricky part, and I've seen sometimes devotees getting entangled in. We need to be human, and we need to pay attention to our emotions and our relative, and it's okay, but in the context of spirituality, our spirituality, if we will ask all the Vaishnavas, is Raga-bhakti. And yesterday we briefly mentioned how this Raga-bhakti is the path of specificity. We spoke recently also. So specificity means there are many details there waiting for us. And it's not, again, some intellectual like recollection, so many things to know and details, and I memorized every single color of the sari of every single gopi assistant of Sri Radha, so I know all these things. Not necessarily in that sense, only at least. So regarding Tamal Krishna's question and methodology, of course, as he himself said, it's impossible to give like one answer that will apply to everyone, because one size, as they say, does not fit all. Every single devotee is not in the same stage, and even on different stages, every single devotee is not the same person. So it's not necessarily that at some stage every devotee has to do certain. I mean, we are one. So our Guru Maharaj will say we are one in sadhana, and in sambandha, in tattva, in siddhanta. Ideally. I mean, unfortunately, we are not one in the whole Gaudiya Sampradaya in siddhanta yet. There are some differences lingering. But ideally, that's the idea. We are one in siddhanta, and if that oneness is there, that may allow for differences in avideya and prayojan. But we have to be one in siddhanta ideally, because we are members of the same sampradaya, Gaudiya Sampradaya. What does it mean, sampradaya? Sampradaya. Pradaya means like giving, and sam means fully. So something that gives fully what? Siddhanta. Because a sampradaya will differ from another sampradaya because they have a different siddhanta. Sampradaya is a school of thought. So they give a particular line of thought, particular Siddhanta. So if we are members of the same Sampradaya, means we share a common Siddhanta. The more, as much as we are not in line with that, our attempts of avideya and prayojan will be fractured, will be affected. We may get together for kirtan or for whatever social gathering, but if in Siddhanta there we still have some differences, our avideya, kirtan, and so on, there will be some missing links there. So it's important to establish this unity in Siddhanta. And as much as we have this unity in Siddhanta, Tattva, Sambandha, whatever diversity comes out of that in Avideya and in Prayojan, that's to be celebrated. And there's place for diversity, but the unity has to be, again, as a foundation. So there is, again, diversity in that case, in Prayojan, as we mentioned the other day. We are not racists. There is place for Madhurya Bhav, there is place for Sakya Bhav in our Sampradaya and so on. Gaur Dasya Bhav. We're not racists, we're not racists in the context of rasa, we say today, that's racism. There's place for diversity in Prayojan, but also there's place for diversity in Avideya. It's not that, and that's my point, the methodology or sadhana is exactly the same for everyone, because there are devotees who will have a higher affinity for whatever, kirtan, smaran, different angas of bhakti, shravan, and we see in the Bhagavad, there are different examples of people attaining perfection through each one of them. Sukadev, Parikshit, yesterday we mentioned Prahlad himself, Smaran, and so on. So that's it. Of course, at the same time, there is some general course to take, but also, again, in that course to take is to be engaged in under the guidance and shelter of Sri Guru, Diksha Gurus, Siksha Gurus. So all the stuff that will like appear on the way is to be like consulted with them, and I will like check on my affinities and whatever is coming and receive some feedback and what to do this, like even Bhaktivinoda Thakur was sharing interestingly in connection to something even like Siddha Pranali. He will say like Siddha Pranali, the Guru may share the information of one particular identity, but that will be kind of a placebo. Placebo, you say in English?
Mm-hmm.
No? Like, okay, you have this affinity, I see this is coming, so you are this and this and that, and try this one. And in time I say, that's okay, Guru, but this detail, it's not fitting that much. Okay, let's adjust this one a little bit. Now, try again. How much? How about now? Oh, it's fitting more. So eventually that will become yourself, if you will. So that type of imagination for us is not fantasy. And that's an important point. It's not fantasy because it's an imagination that is being exercised under the shelter of the Swarup Shakti in the context of Guru Seva. And there is some discipline between, so it's not fantasy. That's different thing. It's not mental speculation. I'm going to that point for a minute, like to show how much there is place for this recalibration of things. So going back to Tamal Krishna's question regarding when to do that, if to do that or not, and blah blah blah. This blah 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 is not negative. No, so I don't use that a lot. I don't know if that's negative in English language. Just asking. When I say blah blah blah, I'm not saying, oh, he's speaking so much. But I say that many times. So I don't want to. Is that legal in English to say like that, or it implies some like? Okay. Okay. So excuse me, all of you, that the last 2 weeks may have thought of, I don't like, Maharaj doesn't like me that much. He said that I say this, and blah, blah, blah. It's just my way of saying etc. or and so on, further on. So I'm learning English with you. I'm a student forever. So keep instructing me. And chastise me whenever I'm doing something improper and saying something. And so on. So of course, for example, to engage in some systematic methodological like meditation, let's say in Gaura's Takaliya Leelas, Siddha Krishnadas Baba depicted in his Gutika. Of course, we will find different strands of Vaishnavism which may also recommend those types of practices in different stages, and that's also some topic of, how would say, contention.
Yeah.
Like even the giving of Siddha Pranali in different stages, and some will not agree that. I mean, some will say that's not bona fide at all. Some other will say that's bona fide, but not in certain states. And some will say from day one you must receive it. So that's another topic. So yeah, at the end it ends up in personal dealing with your guru, with your bhajan siksha guru. But I will personally not encourage like a full immersion in that type of meditation, because to begin with, it's not possible. I mean, you cannot just full immerse in that. Just I will full immerse in Gaur Leela. It's not, it won't happen. Of course, you start knowing something from day one about Mahaprabhu exists, Nityananda Prabhu exists, Gadadhar, Panchatattva, Gaur. There's something called Gaur Leela. There's something called Nava. I mean, gradually the whole lotus, if you will, opens more and more, and that starts from day one. I mean, like Srila Prabhupada giving Krishna book almost from day one. Although it's such a high thing, our Guru Maharaj was speaking about that today. But he gave that from day one, like at least know that this exists and start to ruminate on that. So in one sense, you are being engaged on that. You know that does exist. You start to hear that more often. You start to worship more formally those particular forms. By that particular sadhu sangha you're in, some bhakti samskars will come, some affinity eventually will come, and some interest in like really participating in that will come. So I feel that, again, that's what I consider according to what I received from my Guru Maharaj. And some other will say, what, but Guru Maharaj is something different. So, and there's place to honor that as well. Again, there may be differences in Avideya, how to approach a methodology, but I will say that, yeah, it shouldn't be a forced thing. Like now you sit 1 hour per day and think about what your Guru Maharaj is doing in the Nitya Lila and his Siddha Swarup at this particular moment. You may not even have a clue about what's a Siddha Swarup, or still you are dealing with so much relativity of your non-Siddha Swarup. So and if you have not solved that properly in the midst of those meditations, so many things may get like hodgepodged, not mixed in that way. So I will say that, for example, Nishta, since you mentioned Nishta, that will be a good, let's say, beginning point to to more officially embrace that practice on some level, because again, there are so many other levels to begin with. And I remember someone asked me, Guru Maharaj, for example, like for example, regarding the Astaka Lila of Mahaprabhu, is it healthy to at least know in general what's going on in each of these 8 periods? And along my day, whenever I remember that today's now it's like whatever 6 p.m. So okay, this particular moment of this, and just think about, oh, at this moment Mahaprabhu is doing this. Is it okay? He said, yeah, it's okay, of course. It's not that. No, it won't be. It won't be. It will be unbecoming. You will bloom yourself by doing that. No, I mean you are thinking about Bhagavan and what he's doing. That creates some sense of some form of mamata, some type of possessiveness. No, we belong. I want to belong there. He belong. Whatever. In some level, you create that type of connection. But again, on some other level, that will become more of an official necessity, if you will. You will go to your Guru Maharaj and say, please help me. No, I need to go there. I want, how can I, what do I have to do to feel myself closer to that? I realize that's a necessity. I realize it's no longer something there and I'm here. Like I want to to be sure I'm walking in that direction. So what I have to do to really advance. Again, that has to do with Nishta, with the Madhyam mentality that our Guru Maharaj will say is mainly concerned with making progress. That's the idea of being a Madhyam. I want to make progress, not because I want to be the best, but because I humbly feel the need to, because of the call that came. So naturally at this point, one will be able oneself to embrace a more substantial sadhana in this internal sense of trying to even make that part of one sadhana, like increase one sadhana to these other aspects that maybe in the beginning were not there. And there's place for that eventually. You can sit and try to meditate. Again, for us it may be some foreign thing, like sit and meditate on the lila and what's going on. If that's still foreign for you, maybe because you're not ready for that yet. But maybe you hear those things if you feel like I feel attracted to that. Of course, that attraction has to be put to test. It's not just I feel attracted. But if at the same time you feel attracted to so many other types of smaran, so many other things, that's what Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta said. The qualification for Raga-bhakti is lobha, greed. But he said that means you have no longer greed for anything else. or as much as one thing is no longer there, you can speak about really having greed in it. Because if not, it's just, again, lip service. Oh yeah, Raganuga Bhakti and Loba, Laulyam and Krishna and Vrindavan. But then again, you have you're a life member of Starbucks and all this stuff. And you don't want to lose that life membership. You project that even beyond this life. I would like to have eternal life membership. Guru Maharaj, is there a Starbucks in Nityananda? Whatever. There's not, just in case. There's no Starbucks, there's no social media. Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah, it sounds like heaven.
Yeah.
I'm joking, but it's real. I mean, it's real. Imagine that now comes the Bhimana, if you will come, okay, let's go to Nityananda. You have to leave your cell phone here. I think I will wait for a while. Have some messages. Some new likes, some new. I mean, so you have to play out all the implications of this stuff. No? So, but yeah, I will say again, it's up to one's guru and the type of siksha one is receiving, and of course where one is situated. But of course, there is place for increasing the smaran. And smaran, of course, can be something that also will happen, not necessarily I will sit and meditate, but naturally will come out of its own accord. The more we may get purified also through kirtan. That's what Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta say, kirtana prabhavi smaran swabhavi. Kirtan will bring smaran naturally. He was a lot of this emphasis that by kirtan, you will naturally get smaran. But of course, it doesn't mean that it's forbidden for you to sit and try to absorb in particular leelas that you may. But again, that's not just like an exercise. It will begin, of course, in one level, more like an exercise, but you have to understand this is to become a constant fluent, is it? Flowing reality. Me. In the beginning, I may not be that accomplished in the practice, but it's also important to exercise our, again, imagination in the context of revelation. Again, it's not just that you give rise to whatever comes on the way of your mind. Oh, well, Mahaprabhu again entered the Starbucks and now social media is calling. No, that's not happening in the Nitya. So imagination exercise in the context of revelation. So there is certain parameters given in Shastra about who is Mahaprabhu, what's the mood there, what's Gaur Lila, what's happening, what you are supposed to do there. So on those parameters, when you have those things clearly in place in your case, you can enter into those realms without risk. But to get those things in place probably reaching Nishta. It has to do a lot with not only firm faith, but firm knowledge, firm shastric knowledge that will nourish your faith. Because firm faith means firm knowledge of Shastra, because our faith is Shastriya Shraddha. There, as we spoke yesterday, when we say firm faith, means firm Shastra, sustaining my faith, because my faith is in the context of what revelation is sharing. So as much as those things are in place, and again, Sri Guru is like following the particular case and examining that and seeing the progress and suggesting, okay, you can now add this to your sadhana. You can recite these prayers. You can recite this. Sometimes that can take the form of you can read this particular section of this particular book. And it becomes more and more specific. Again, in the beginning, it's just, okay, read the Bhagavatam. Or even don't read the Bhagavatam. Read something else. Or don't read in some cases. Prabhupada said that to some of his disciples. We're reading the Bhagavatam, but we're having some strange ideas. And Prabhupada said, you're reading too much. Close the book. And at some point, okay, open the book again. And now open that book. And now open that chapter of that book. And now go to that verse of that chapter of that book. And so on. So again, that takes time, and each case is difficult, different, but yeah, there is place for a methodology of remembrance. Again, I'm not saying every single person at one point has to do that. Not necessarily. We have known of many devotees who have reached high stages of smaran, because smaran also is not necessarily also, okay, I will sit and I will remember certain things. Also, it has to do with the function of the mind. That when the mind is reach a certain level of spiritualization, it will naturally like reflect transcendence there. So it's a way of internally being connected with that frequency there. But of course, we can also try to use our, again, mental capacities in connection with the lila. That's the whole idea. I mean, if you engage in Shravan and Kirtan, eventually that has to translate into Shmara. I mean, if you hear about something, speak about something, hear about something, speak about, at one point you will start. This will enter here through, but will, I say it here, but it's here basically. No? So you will remember certain things, you will think about those things. And for me, also a way of speaking about Smaran, which sometimes you say remember, it's not just like remember, like this happened, but also, you know, you are hearing Sri Guru, the Vaishnavas, Harikatha, or whatever experience you had in your own sadhana, and reflecting on that, and thinking about that. That's for me also is a way of Smaran, if you will. Because there are different types of Smarans. Nam Smaran, Guna Smaran, Rupa Smaran, Lila Smaran. Sometimes Smaran is almost exclusively connected with Lila Smaran, but that's only one of different ones. No? So Nam Smaran for me is not only Sri Nam is sounding in my mind, but also I'm chanting Sri Nam, so many things are happening, or something is happening at least. And whatever happens as a result of Nam, I am thinking about that. That for me also is Nam Smara. You are reflecting on the consequences of your chanting. That's Smara also. I mean, you have to do something what comes out of the chanting and out of every single thing you're doing. Your hearing, your association, that creates some, you have to ruminate on that. And that's for me Smara. That's a way of conceiving Smara also. You follow my point? It's not just I see it, okay, this is I memorized the 8 verses, Mahaprabhu's auspicious 8 daily eightfold activities. So, okay, now this time, 3:36 to 6, he's doing this. 6 to 8:24, he's doing this. 8:24 to 10:48, he's doing this. 10:48 to 3:36, he's doing this. Madhyan Lila, and this. Nishantali, brothers, no. It's not just copy paste in a mechanical way. It may be much more productive if you're ruminating about whatever the class you hear from certain Vaishnavas the day before for many devotees, not just like I memorize. I know the whole Astakaya Lila now. I know everything that Mahaprabhu is doing. I'm meditating on that, but that can be tricky also if you're not. these type of ideas are to be meditated on in the context of course, trying to, with the hope of participating in that, of seeing ourselves reflected in that on some level, and doing that in a sincere way, knowing what's the price to enter there. So for that, we need to ruminate on so many also teachings and Siddhanta, because all that Siddhanta again is the foundation to the land of power. Our Guru Maharaj will say Siddhanta is the, what does he say? Is the canvas on which the what? The art of Krishna Lila is drawn. Of Gaur Lila. Krishna Lila, Gaur Lila is like a painting, like a piece of art. But the canvas on which that's made is made of Siddhanta or Tattva. So we need to have the foundational ground in place for the Lila to really happen. Because if not, all the players feel like, oh, there's no ground here. And you will be the only one drowning there, actually. All the players are in safe land there. But so yeah, some ideas. I hope it helps. Malangopal.
I was just thinking about this from Krishna's question. That line, Kirtana Prabhavi Smartana Svabhavi, and Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta's idea of, I was just thinking that it's not about like integrity and sattva-gun or Raga-bhakti and Smaran, but in his idea of Sankirtan, it's kind of what you've been speaking about, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur is approaching Sringadev, kind of in the context of, you're talking about anartas and these things, we're trying to qualify ourselves and cleanse our hearts and Chetu Darpana Marjanam. But it's actually all, it's like his idea of Sankirtan, complete kirtan, where you're engaging everything. So in that context where you're becoming prayer, then you'll find your swabhava, that will be born out of that, out of engaging everything in that spirit. Smaran will come from that. So, and under the guidance of your guru, as you become attracted to these things, there may be more given, but then you keep going on developing yourself in that Sankirtan, that complete engaging everything. Mm-hmm. So it's not like a separate process. Mm-hmm. Like I have to get rid of my anartas before I can, but both, not either or, but and.
Yeah, and the point that we were mentioning that eventually our Swarup will descend, but it won't happen from one day to another. So by proper engagement in Sankirtan, what you mentioned, eventually some affinity will start to come, some further guidance will start to come, and some different degrees of Smaran will start to happen. It's not that one day I'm there like fully absorbing my ultimate identity and meditating in every single lila while doing everything else, but gradually some affinities there, and I will ask guidance for Guru. And Guru will also advise according to each one's not only stage by nature, because different devotees may be in the same stage with different natures. One devotee will be engaged in certain external activities and internally connected to Smaran because of being in that stage, and some other may sit and you have a Krishna Das Babaji and a Bhakti Daita Madhava Maharaj. The two of them were disciples of Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, and one was like standard preacher and opening temples and expanding the campaign, and the other one was just quote unquote rolling on the ground and visiting one temple and singing and rolling on the ground, reaching another temple, and
Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta's Kirtana Prabhavi, those are both kirtan, his kirtan
Yeah.
that he's speaking
Yeah.
about there is, establishing printing presses and opening temples and doing that's also, Krishnadas Babaji.
Yeah, that's why he put the printing press on the side of the Raga-bhakti logo of Gaudiya Math. That's like that for me. The first time I saw it was like, oh my god. You have to be really dynamic to process this. Raga-bhakti, you put the printing press there. Like, what? The Bhagavatam and Radha and Krishna and all these super esoteric elements and the printing press. He wanted to make the point, and as we spoke the other day, as much as you would like to criticize Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta saying he was not the Raga-bhakti, he was not the Raga-bhakti, but before starting all this revolutionary campaign, he was chanting 1 billion names. So, I mean, he was a Bhajana Nandi, he was absorbed. I mean, he was chanting 3 lakhs per day for almost a decade. And then he woke up. And then he said, okay, let's open a printing press. That the background of his printing press is 3 lakhs per day for a decade. So it's not that he was like hyperactive and he needed to do something because I cannot sit and do bhajan. I mean, for him it was difficult to get up from his bhajan. For us, it's difficult to sit down to do bhajan. For him, it was difficult because so much taste is there. I mean, I can try to imagine if I only tell you try to chant 1 lakh one day, you start to have a headache maybe. Imagine if I tell you 3 lakhs one day, maybe you faint. If I say you 3 lakhs 10 years, you are no longer here. Like some fire appears and you are consumed in the flames. And he was doing that. 192 rounds per day, technically speaking. Multiply by 9 years or
3
something.
lakhs is 1,000?
1 lakh is 64
64
rounds.
Okay.
3 lakhs is 192 rounds.
In one day.
One day, which implies 24 hours basically. And when he finished, because that's a vow he made. Some Vaishnavas do that vow, is to chant 1 billion names. So, and it said when he finished chanting the last one, Ram, Ram, Hari, Hari, one paper came flying to the Bhajan Kutri. He was like in the jungle. There was this verse of the Chaitanya Charitamrita Mahaprabhu was telling to Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, go to Vrindavan, open temples, write books, install the deity, establish the standard for conduct for the Vaishnavas. So he said, okay. It's difficult to wake up, but he woke up and he engaged in Sankirtan, in that particular Sankirtan. Ujjala Raga-bhakti Gaurava-bhange. So Srimad will say that is Bhakti Siddhanta Vani. He says the real existence of Bhakti Siddhanta is there. That's another story to explain that line. How to engage everything in that Sankirtan in such a way that all our attraction for this world disappears, and eventually how to worship the Raga Marg with reverence. Now, Raga Marg is not about reverence, but he will say we are to worship that path with reverence. It's not the Raga Marg is reverent, but we have reverence for the path of passionate love. The more reverence we have, and the more we absorb all our faculties in the context of Harinam Sankirtan and consume all our tendencies and desire by engaging everything in the context of the pursuit of that mark. Eventually, we will see our desires and greed replaced in a proper direction, and again, more and more facility for engaging in internal life and Shmaran and so on. But again, that's an important point. Different devotees, different natures. That's a place for that. Bhakti Jivan Janardhan Maharaj, he was also a disciple of Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, and he was almost the only one who was allowed to speak about Radha Dasyam in detail. Not only to speak, but for sure to study and go in depth of all the implications. But not everyone was doing that. But there was place for that in some cases. So again, it's not just like Madan Gopal was saying, not black and white. So many shades of gray in between. Okay, something more? Yeah.
I might not be able to say this right, but you're talking about getting connections, interconnections and whatnot, and all these past questions which have been talked about. I was just thinking about this idea of a separation, I guess, between what you just described seemed to be Srila Bhaktisiddhanta becoming prayer as you've been talking about it. And I'm wondering if this is connected to, his preface to the Bhajana Rahasya. He talks about Arcana and Bhajan. And some say that Arcana is Bhajan and Bhajan is Arcana, but he would say that Arcana is part of Bhajan. It seemed like it's the ultimate in non-separation. That, I don't know how I'm trying to say it, but where one person may see there's material and spiritual, and then the material and spiritual become, I guess, like a sadhaka type thing, and then eventually there's a separation between the worshiper and the worshipped, but then ultimately there's no separation, and that's Bhajan. I may just be saying a whole lot of jazz here, but I'm trying to connect that idea with what you've been talking about, and trying to understand this also in context of the preface of another book that talked about the different types of smarnam. And the first part of smarnam means that you got a little bit of smarnam, but there's separation in between it. And then that becomes more continuous. Eventually you get to this oil line, and then there's samadhi. But it seems like all of this is happening kind of simultaneously in different ways, and that you don't necessarily have to orchestrate it, but one's learning about the Leela. There's another part, I remember Guru Maharaj talking about Jiva Goswami saying that, I don't remember the term, Kram Vikram, like learning the Leela and also becoming steady, and then to connect it back to that part, it seems like someone may get into one of the 9 processes, and any of those processes you have a separation, but eventually that leads to a smarnam, because all of them are going to lead to that. And then once that smarnam's there, eventually bhajan happens. I don't know what I'm getting at here, but it seems like I'm just trying to make connections, and I'm just throwing it out there and seeing.
That's the problem of having a jazz musician asking questions.
I apologize. I thought about just keeping it to myself, but no one came forward with a question.
Jazz music makes for an ending.
That's
no
only
one's chase and possibilities.
Only one of my problems. Anyway, if you made sense of any of that, what do you think? I mean, because I don't know. It seems like it's.
Yeah. Well, to begin with, I do not. I've read that introduction, but I do not recall it in full detail.
Okay.
Because I have to make that statement first. But of course, I fully trust what you are telling us about that introduction of that book, Bhajana Rahasya. And yes, sometimes the concept of Arcana and Bhajana are presented kind of separate. The very logo of again, going back to the logo of Gaudiya Mat.
I think he even mentioned that like the Archan, like a Kanishta conception of that, there would be a separation between the worshiper and the worship. And then that Archan could be Bhajan, but it's not necessarily.
Archa could?
It could be. I mean, it was like Bhajan was like a level of, if you know what I mean. Eventually, there's not a separation between the worshiper and the worship, and that was connected to Rag as well. And I was just thinking that, it seems connected to the kirtan leading into Smaran, or any of these practices at so-called lower levels, whatever level we're at, it's the level we're at, but it leads to Bhajan and Smaran.
Yeah, I remember someone asking Guru Maharaj, for example, one day, should one think about Krishna's pastimes when chanting japa? And he said, if those pastimes comes naturally out of your chanting, at some point that should happen, then it's okay. I mean, you don't have to. But if not, it's better that you concentrate on chanting, because if you're chanting and forcefully, if you will, you try to meditate on the lila, you are doing something else. You're doing lila smaran, but nam japa, if you will. But if your nam japa naturally like overflows in the form of certain smaran, not only that's not to be stopped, but that's like the real fruit of what you are doing, basically. So that's to be celebrated, if you will. So kind of in connection to what you are asking, this type of merging, if you will, between one practice and the other. I mean, if you are really engaged in chanting japas and kirtan at certain advanced stages, all the things will come, basically. I mean, because nam, as we know, includes guna, rupa, and lila. But we are to begin in nam. That's the emphasis also that Jiva Goswami makes in what you refer to as Kram Bikram in Bhakti Sandarbha, that he speaks about nam, guna, rupa, lila. And at the same time, he speaks about Shravan, Kirtan, Smaran. So he gives this notion that first you do nam Shravan, nam Kirtan, nam Smaran. Rupa Shravan, Rupa Kirtan, Rupa Smaran. Guna Shravan, Guna Kirtan, Guna Smaran. Lila Shravan, Lila Kirtan, Lila Smaran. So then only he reaches Lila Smaran. No? But first, so, but of course, again, natural, but all that begins with Nam. So Nam is like including all these other stages. Nam continues, but Rupa is appearing, Guna is appearing, Lila is appearing in the context of your Nam. It's not that, okay, now Lila Smaran doesn't necessarily like exclude Kirtan. It's not that only if you're sitting and just thinking about the Lila is Lila Smaran. Sometimes that may be the lower type of Lila Smaran. If you just sit and try to meditate on the Lila, but someone may be doing Kirtan, and I say, that's not so high. Lila Smaran is high. Maybe he's in a deeper Lila Smaran. That the one that you try to do more mechanically. I will think about this and so on. So that kind of applies with the concept of course, of Arcana and Bhajana, that, following what our Guru Maharaj will say in the beginning, there is this distancing of worshipper and worship, and the more, and that has a lot to do with this line, Pujala Raga-bhakti Gaura-bhanga. The more you bridge the gap by offering everything in this world for your deity, and in the context of that, trying to offer yourself installments, that bridges the gap between you and the deity. So the distance and the difference between worshipped and worshipper is gapped more and more. At one point, you won't conceive that in terms even of worship, because Arcana has to do also, I will say, with the conception, worship. But if you speak about Bhajan, strictly speaking, the term worship is not correct. Right? Everyone in Vrindavan is engaged in Bhajan, but nobody's worshipping Krishna. Everyone loves Krishna. Nobody worships Krishna. Everyone worships Narayan for the sake of Krishna. As Guru Maharaj will say, Nanda Maharaj or whoever is worshipping Narayan, Nandishwar, Nrsimha or Sriman Narayan, externally they are doing archan, they are expressing by the bhakti in the context of the lila, but their mind is somewhere else. As our mind may be somewhere else when we are worshipping the deity, but their mind is somewhere else, and that somewhere else is always Krishna. So in Vrindavan they do not worship Krishna, they love Krishna. like this happened when Uddhava said that to Nanda Maharaj, going back to that same situation, and say, what did he say? Like something like, you are so fortunate because your son is to be served and worshipped by everyone. And he looked like, again, like you are totally dysfunctional. No, he's not to be served. Nobody here is like worshiping him and so on. They love him, naturally. Like Lokika bandhu, sad lokika bandhu. Say in Vrindavan, that's the psychology, like an ordinary friend, basically, a village friend. This is our village friend, Krishna, my village boy, my village this, my village that. Ordinary, quote unquote. That's the topmost extraordinariness. But yeah, our archana, if we are in our archana, has to progress in the context of bhajan. Externally, you will be offering the same things, but internally, or maybe even as your internal offering progresses, as we will know, the external offerings will simplify more and more and more and more. So we were speaking with Subal yesterday, till you have your Govardhan Shila, and your standard is to worship him, to do daily abhishek with your tears, as Mahaprabhu recommended to Raghunath Das Goswami. You worship him. How to worship? You just bathe him daily with your tears. Okay? That's the highest. That's not Archana Padati. That's not in the Archana Padati. That's the Bhajana Padati of the Goswamis and Mahaprabhu. So that will come. Many times we hear that all these elements that are in the art of play, artic play, eventually are to emanate from us naturally. And then we can say you get the PhD from Archana to Bhajan, if you will. Like the pranam mantra for Gadadhar Pandit, the composer Sridhar Maharaj, it's saying that. Ashru Payanai. He's worshipping the Bhagavatam. As you do Bhagavat Puja before honoring the Bhagavatam, sometimes some pandits offer incense and blood to the Bhagavatam and water with the conch shell. But Gadadhar was offering. Conch shell were his two eyes. The flower was his heart, and he was offering the fragrance of his bhakti. So the whole artic play was personified in him. You don't have, again, there's no difference. I'm not offering this. I am the whole thing you offer. So yeah, as much as we progress, this type of sayuja has to take place, if you will. Healthy merging, if you will. Okay, well, I think we are in time, but I don't know if there's one more question maybe for finishing. If you have that thing to add, contribute, Purangapriya.
So I had a little bit of a similar question to that Tamal Krishna asked. He was a little more eloquent about it than I. Because I wrote this thing down and I made stars next to it yesterday when you said this thing, because it was very a little bit confronting for me personally. So you said we have to enter into the specificity of the path. If we reply that my path is love of Krishna, that is a type of impersonalism.
Mm-hmm. So the idea came the other day, yeah.
So it was a little bit shocking.
That was the idea.
Okay. So yeah, and I felt
on some level, I say that, of course. No?
Yeah. Like, oh, okay. Well, you're like, is there a methodology, or you're saying this, and then what am I supposed to do with that? But I think it is. I mean, that was like, I feel better after what you said. Like, it's a natural process, you know. But if you could talk a little bit, you know, because I'm still trying to not yell at my children, and you know, like
in the context of Raga-bhakti.
Yes, in the context, and I think this idea of even just being aware is so powerful. Like being aware of where we want to go, which is something that is, it's very almost novel to me, but it seems so powerful to even if I'm so far from that, but to even feel like, okay, I know where I want to go. So if you could talk a little bit about, you mentioned a few times, you know, this affinity will develop. So can you talk a little bit about, in practical terms, like you were saying, maybe a name of Krishna or stories? So you're saying, like, what is that? You find some
That's what is,
attraction.
yeah, that's what is supposed to happen.
Right.
For sure, we are all of us are here for that, basically. I mean, we want the real thing. Hopefully, we don't want to remain stuck in a neophyte level. I mean, it's glorious, as we say yesterday, to be a Kanishta Adhikari. You already have Adhikar for Bhakti. There is a glory to that, but we don't want to remain toddlers, you say in English, for eternity. I mean, that's not the idea. So, of course, as you also mentioned, when I mentioned this idea of to think love of God is the ultimate goal, at certain stage, that's a form of impersonalism in the sense that at certain stage, certain level of personalism is required, that if you deny that, it's impersonal. I mean, impersonalism is denial of personalism, not only in the context of who Bhagavan is for me, but also who I am for him, who I am supposed to be for him at this stage of my life. It no longer stand the idea of I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. You may repeat the dogma, but at one point that won't be enough. Krishna will say, that's not enough. I want to hear more detail, more specificity, please. No? Again, not in a forced way, but
being open to that.
Yeah, and understanding it has to happen naturally like that, because, and as you mentioned, this idea of having the goal in mind, that's really sobering. That's totally sobering, and puts everything in context. If we really have the capacity of maintaining that goal present, not as a threat or as a paranoia, but I mean, I want all of this to converge at that point. Even if at the beginning our idea of that is still general, because that may be general. What's your goal? Again, love for God, love Vrindavan, Nityanavadi, put the name you want. Still maybe a general idea. But even the general idea is so powerful, so sobering. If you really play out, again, the implications of that, I will say that it's as important, maybe in the beginning, depend each case and the stages, but for me it's as important to establish where we want to go that where we are now. Our Guru Maharaj will emphasize the two things, of course, because one without the other is like headache. If you only emphasize, I want to go there, 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 but you don't have a clue where you are now, who you are now, I mean, it's just like fantasy, and you may get some emotional dysfunctionality in the name of I want to go there. And you will end up with in the madhouse. Like, I want to go there, I want to go there, I want to go there. I'm seeing Krishna. But the opposite is the same. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm this, and you over-identify with your relativity and your blah, 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 and so on. And you forget no, all this potential, all this bright horizon is waiting for us. So we hear from our acharyas, you know, speaking in our particular case from our Guru Maharaj. I mean, he spends so much time trying to make us clear where should we want to go. I mean, he's really investing himself in that for years. I mean, it's not that he has nothing to do or he does that only for fun or something. We have to understand why you at one point you have to ask yourself, why my Guru Maharaj is speaking so much about these things? Why? I mean, there is some intention for me in that connection, or because you can simplify all that in a simplistic way. Say, oh, he's so high and he's speaking from that place because he's there, but I'm so falling, and all this false humility actually show. But if you start to really relate to that and commit to that, and really, that's for me also. Of course, he may speak about something more relative, and you may feel more immediately at home. Oh, that's me. That anartha, that embarrassing stuff. Oh yeah, I know that. But in one sense, the challenge for us is we should gradually learn to get more identified with the higher prospect that with the lower present situation we may be in. That's a challenge. Maybe in the beginning we get more identified. Oh yeah, lust, greed, envy, this and that. Yeah, that's me. That's easy to identify. That's a form of complacency. Oh yeah, that's me. and you close yourself to being something else. I identify well, I like, but when he starts to speak about high topics, if you will, we sometimes do not relate to that in the name of humility, but that's not necessarily humility. Of course, we do not have to rush and say, oh yeah, I'm there, I'm that. No, but we should feel like, for some reason, this is happening. For some reason, Krishna is making my guru dance in this particular way and say what he's saying, and I'm there to witness. So he's trying to show me something. He's trying to show me there somehow. He's trying to tell me, this is all you can be. You like this prospect? I'm there waiting for you. You want to come with me? And so on. I mean, he may not say it in that sense, but he's saying that. I mean, if you have years to years, you say, he himself is that portal, and I am to enter there. That means to drink his harikatha. It's not just sitting, taking some notes, and continue with ordinary life. Understanding, portal is opening, and I am there to enter, and it's no return ticket. So the more we realize that, the more we will develop a certain urge to, okay, at the same time, I feel totally far from that. That may happen. It's not that, okay, I'm ready for that. And no, at the same time, you realize, okay, but still I'm here, but the goal is here. And my guru is the personified goal coming to me every single time, visiting me. That's how we should see. Sri Guru is Prayojan Tattva embodied. Because for us, goal is, love of Krishna. What's Guru, Sadhu? The personification of one type of particular love for Krishna. Appearing in front of your eyes and speaking and moving and shaking us and trying to inviting us there. So the more we commit to that call, the more naturally something will start to happen inside of us. Something has to happen. If not, we are sentient beings. We are not robots. So we start to feel something and some call and some affinity in particular direction that generally will be defined by by the sadhu sangha, the most substantial sadhu sangha that is affecting our lives, or maybe have affected our lifetimes previously, because that can happen. If you have been practicing more than one lifetime, you may already come with certain, you will have inherent bhakti. Bhakti is inherent in those cases. So you will feel some affinity in one direction or another. That will take place. I mean, I like to hear, one will feel, I like to hear, when Guru Maharaj speaks about those particular lila, I feel some special call there. It's not that I reject the other things. No, we have to be careful about that. Like we were speaking the other day, Okay, I go to Sakya Rasa because I don't like Madhurya Rasa. But that's not the way to go to Sakya Rasa. Right. Or I go to Madhurya Rasa because Sakya Rasa is not the big thing for me. But Madhurya Rasa is the big thing for you, because if not, you are nowhere yet. Nowhere, quote unquote. So eventually some affinity will come. Again, it's not some fourth thing. Yeah. And of course, the affinity, I'm speaking here in the connection to the realm of Krishna Lila, but to begin with, we have to go again through the gate of Gaur Lila. And Gaur Lila, we all will meet there in Dasya Rasa with a tinge of Sakya for Mahaprabhu and so on. So we are first to be fully established there. And if we pass that test, then we will understand what's the Sakya and the Madhurya and all this dynamics in Vrindavan, which has Dasya as a foundation somehow or other. So gradually that will come, and if that comes, Guru is there to nourish that. You will have to speak with your guardians and say, Gurudev, I have this affinity. I'm not sure if that's real affinity. Please put me to test. That's also important. It's not that you come and, Gurudev, I'm totally sure that this is the real. I don't know. I think so, but please, I would like to really have integrity in my whatever affinity comes. So please put me to test, and if that's real, help me to nourish that. I don't have a clue where to start. So whatever that he may recommend, you can read these, you can recite these verses every day, you can whatever. sing these particular songs, study these particular books, hear these particular lectures. And in time, some other things will come internally. And whatever is going on internally, you will go and confirm that externally, if you will, with your guardian. There will be some blessings and further advice, adjustments. And again, you take up certain sadhana internally. It's a dialogue. We are constructing this project, this identity, along with our with our guardians. So again, it's not just like a fixed rules, but and do not feel if that's not happening yet, it's no need to rush. Like, oh no, I'm seeing that 2 or 3 of my god siblings already have some affinity. I don't know what's my affinity. I should have some affinity. Again, dasya is there to begin for all, and not to begin only, but for eternity, need now. So, and we may not have an affinity for that yet. So better be sure that you have an affinity for real dasya as a sadhaka now, because if that's not there, I mean, whatever any other thing is just like a castle in a flower in the sky, as they say. Pushpa Akash. So we are sadhakas. Well, Guru Maharaj emphasized that so much. No? You want your siddha deha, but you already have a sadhaka deha. So if you properly do all the things you have to do with this as a sadhaka, siddha deha will come as a result of that. It's another way of saying fully embrace the dasya that is connected with your sadhaka deha, and whatever other mood is connected with your siddha deha and brush, that will come out of its own accord. Yeah. Keeping in the proper association and engaged in serious bhajan, that's the formula, if you will, of success. I mean, remaining under the protective you say, circle, and doing the correct things in that correct circle. Everything will come gradually. Okay. But I think we can finish here. Chila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Sri Radha Sarat Bihari ji ki jai, Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Sri Gaur Gadadhar ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premananda, Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Sindhu Eva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Hari Bol.